This is StoryBeat, Storytellers on Storytelling, an exploration into how master storytellers and artists develop and build brilliant stories and works of art that people everywhere love and admire. So join us as we discover how talented creators of all kinds find success in the worlds of imagination and entertainment. Here now is your host, Steve Cuden.
Thanks for joining us on StoryBeat. We're coming to you from the Center for Media Innovation on the campus of Point Park University in the heart of downtown Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Well, we've got a very special show today. My guest is the extraordinary veteran movie producer Koch, who's been intimately involved in the making of more than 60 major motion pictures. Among them, such memorable classics as Chinatown, Heaven Can Wait, Wayne's World, Marathon Man, The Way We Were, Primal Fear, Peggy Sue Got Married, and Rosemary's Baby. Koch has also served as president of both the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences and the Producers Guild of America. During his tenure at the Academy, Koch spearheaded several initiatives, including a call for diversity. Along with Mark Gordon, Koch's co-president of the Producers Guild of America, they secured a groundbreaking commitment from all the major studios and independents to uphold the producer's mark, p.g.a. Koch has just published his brilliant autobiography, Magic Time, which I've read and highly recommend. It's incredibly entertaining. You can find Magic Time at Amazon.com and fine booksellers everywhere. For more information, please visit hawkkoch.com. Well, this is a huge thrill for me personally because I've admired the work of Koch for a very long time. And this is a terrific honor to have the powerhouse producer, Koch, as my guest on StoryBeat today. Koch, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Steve. Quite an introduction. I got tired.
It's almost like you've done a few things.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how to stop. I haven't worked a day in my life. I just love what I do.
Then you don't. Then you don't work. If you really love it, you aren't really working, are you?
That's true.
So let's talk quickly about your book, about Magic Time. I thoroughly enjoyed reading it, and you've had one heck of a life. I mean, and after producing so many great stories, what I'm wondering is if you wouldn't tell the listeners what led you to sit down and write about your own story.
Well, I really love mentoring, and I gave a commencement address at Dodge College at Chapman University. Dodge is the film school there
in Orange County.
A few years back, and a lot of people said they were so inspired, and I went and talked to an agent and said, I really enjoy speaking to young people, to old people. I really enjoy mentoring and inspiring people to move on with their lives in ways that maybe will make their lives happier. And she said, the agent said, do you have a book? And I said, no. She said, well, you're never going to get hired to give speeches unless you have a book. So that's how it started. And then once I kind of got into it, I realized that I didn't want to do a book of just Hollywood stories, that there had to be a spine to it, and the relationship between my father and I really became the spine of the book, and it got to be a much deeper book and really kind of cathartic for me to come out and kind of look at everything and how my life has gone by.
So you're clearly not known as a writer. Did you enjoy the writing process?
I really did, and my wife, Molly Jordan, who is a certified Jungian analyst, that's a shrink for Carl Jung, that's
yeah.
Certified Jungian analyst, she's a wonderful writer, and she worked with me. We, kind of interesting, we were going to take a drive from Los Angeles up into the state of Oregon, and I wrote down all the movies in continuity that I'd worked on, and as we drove the 10 hours, she would hit me with the name of a movie, and I'd talk about kind of the, what was happening on that movie, if there were any good stories on that movie, and then I'd also kind of figure out what was going on in my personal life at that moment.
Right.
And so we kind of downloaded that, and she transcribed it, and then we went to work. And it kind of gave us a framework.
I think one of the most fascinating parts of the book is that spine that you talk about your father, who was an extremely well-known producer in Hollywood, Howard W. Koch, and that relationship that you had with him, and how many ups and downs you had with it. It was fascinating to me. Was it hard for you to dig into that material on your own life?
It wasn't hard because, as I said, my wife's a shrink, and she was able to ask me questions that I really had to go deep into. And my dad's been gone for 18 years now, and so I think I was able to really look at it and understand it. And I think between the bar mitzvah and becoming president of the academy, I really was able to find my own identity.
Well, we should tell people. We should tell the listeners. We should tell the listeners that you had a bar mitzvah somewhat late in life.
Yeah, I didn't have one at 13, and I was going through a tough time, and I was talking to a buddy of mine, and he said, "Well, I've been to all your children's bar and bat mitzvahs." He's Catholic, and I asked him. He said, "Can you get bar mitzvah at 50?" And I said, "Wow, I don't know, but wow, what a good idea." So I met with a rabbi. I did some research and found a wonderful, wonderful rabbi. And we talked for about a half hour. I told him a little bit about my life, and then he asked me, he said, "Well, who are you?" And I said quickly, "I'm a movie producer." He said, No. Who are you? And I said, "Oh, well, I'm a father and I'm a son." He kind of got angry. He said, "Well, who are you?" And I didn't know what to say. And all of a sudden, I don't know where it came from in me, but I said, "Oh, I'm a Jewish man." And he said, "That's a start." And I knew, damn, I'm in trouble with this. And he said, "What's your Hebrew name?" And I said, "Well, my parents were non-religious. I don't have a Hebrew name." And he said, "Well, for your 50th birthday, for your bar mitzvah, you will be given your own name, because my name was Howard W. Koch Jr.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter where I went in my life up until that point, because my dad was such a well-known and well-loved man in the industry, and when I didn't be introduced, this is Howard Koch Jr., they'd say, "Oh, you must be so proud. Your father is such a wonderful man. I mean, God, what he did for me, what he did for my wife, for my sister, for my cousin. Please say hello to him for me." But nobody talked to me. They talked about my father.
Sure.
So when the rabbi said, "You'll be given your own name," I broke down. And he said, "What is it? Why are you crying?" And I said, "I just realized after 49 years, I've had my father's name. I want my own name." And then he said the words that changed my life. This rabbi said to me, "You can have your own name." What? I can have my own name? He said, "Yeah, why not? You've earned whatever. What do you want to be called? Do you want to be called, John or Frank or David or whatever?" "No." He said, "Well, did you ever have a nickname?" And I said, "Well, my initials are HWK. And, a few people called me Hawk as a kid, but didn't really stick." And he said, "Do you know anything about hawks?" And I said, "Yeah, hawks are a bird of prey, and I've been pretty good at that." And he said, "Well, hawks mate for life." And I said, "Well, that's something I was not very good at." And he said, "Well, they also can see from horizon to horizon, and they can see like a rabbit a half a mile away." He said, "Wouldn't it be great if you could see the panoramic of your life in the detail, always at the same time?" And I thought, wow, that's really something to strive for. But isn't Hawk a pretentious name? And he said, "It's only pretentious if you allow it to be."
You sure?
So I said, I kind of thought to myself, wow, can I really, change my name at 50? I had 3 kids. I had friends. I had, acquaintances. I had workers, everybody. I'm going to change my name. What are they going to think of me? And I went up to Colorado to a wonderful place called Telluride.
Right.
I walked around, and there were hawks flying over the place. And I walked down the street, and there was a Native American selling trinkets. And there was a trinket there that had a cloud, a lightning bolt and the word listen on it. And I asked the Native American, I said, what does that mean? And he said, do you know how awake, aware, and attuned we are to all of our senses between the lightning and the thunder? How we listen, lightning and thunder, you smell it, you hear it, you see it, you feel it, you taste it. He said, wouldn't it be great if you could be that awake and aware and attuned, not just between the lightning and the thunder, but all the time in your life? Wouldn't that be great to strive for?
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, that's a sign. That A of being awake and aware and attuned is the A I can use with my initials, HWK, and that gives me a reason to be called Hawk.
Isn't that beautiful?
And I came home, and I got bar mitzvahed for my birthday. I changed my name to Hawk. And now, and for years after that, instead of going, oh, I love your dad, and blah, 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 they would say, hey, what a weird name is Hawk, or what a cool name is Hawk, or how'd you get the name Hawk, or has that always been your name? And they start talking to me as opposed to about my father.
So it was it was total catharsis for you to go through that.
Yes.
And
really.
Yeah, it's. Right. I mean, the thing about it that's really, a credit to you is that you took and made yourself memorable to others, which is amazing.
I felt like I got seen.
Yeah, a lot of the movies that you've worked on are completely memorable to people. They're totally in the consciousness of the public, and the name Hawk is a very memorable name. It's hard to forget. So I think that's an amazing thing when you can come to that, because my name's Steve, but Steve, it's just a common name. But Hawk is very special.
Yeah.
How much research on the book did you need to do beyond your own memory, or did you not need to do any?
Not much, really. I mean, I don't know why I can remember everything. Sometimes I have problems today remembering things, but I remember. It's really great. My dad had a great memory, and so I guess I got the gene from him. But I really, really loved making movies, and I really loved the crews. The crews are my family, and we work together. It's I don't know if any of you guys are sports fans, but when you watch the Steelers play, and you watch them play as a team, where not any one guy, what's his name's, your quarterback's hurt, but yet these other quarterbacks have come in and they've done okay with the rest of the team that have kind of picked up the rest. Well, that's the way it is when you're making a movie. Everybody, a lot of people say, oh, the auteur, the director. I'm sorry. Yes, the director's really important, and it's his vision, but it was my vision first. I generally hired the director, and then we as a team had the same vision as the studio or the person who's financing it. And then we went to the actors or the actresses and made sure that their vision was the same vision that we had, and all the way down to the cinematographer and the production designer and the sound. I mean, everybody. We're all in it together.
So, I'm a screenwriter by trade, and I teach screenwriting here in Pittsburgh and have for almost 10 years. And, without the screenwriter, without some idea, what do you have? You don't really have very much, do you?
No, it all starts with the story. I tell everybody I have a wonderful grandson who's an assistant editor, and when he was going to school, he was taking all these film classes. He was in film school. And I said, take English classes too. Because what everybody I've ever talked to, whether you're a film editor, a cinematographer, a director, whatever it is, you have to know how to tell a story. If you don't know how to tell a story, you're not going to be good at any of the crafts that we do. And writing is the first one, boy.
It surely is. I mean, without that story.
You can know of a story, but if you don't know how to tell it, it's not going to go anywhere.
Do you think, like I do, that the editor is the last writer on the movie?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
They get to frame it.
He or she gets kind of a wonderful kind of thing they do is when when the movie's over, the director and the producer, we all take a break. We'd like you to take a big breath. And the editor, who has been working behind us every day behind us, puts his assembly together.
Mm-hmm.
And that generally takes 2, 3, 4 weeks. So he or she is really putting that script, that everything we've done together, and he gets to do that first.
Right. So we talked very briefly here about school. You did not go to school for filmmaking, did you?
No, yes, I did go to school for filmmaking.
School of Hard Knocks.
It was called being on the set.
Yeah.
From the time I was 4 years old.
What?
My dad made B movies in the 50s, and he never took vacations. He took location, and so every summer, Christmas vacation, President's Day, whatever it was, I was on the set.
Quickly tell the story, which I love, the story of your very, very early experience of being pulled up onto a horse by someone famous.
Yeah, well, my mom took my sister and I have an older sister, up to Colorado, a place called Durango. My dad was making a movie. I didn't know what that was. I was 4 years old,
mm-hmm.
And it was 1950. And that gives my age, I guess, guys. And my dad took me on the set. I was crying. I didn't want to leave my mom. And all of a sudden, I saw cowboys and Indians and horses and teepees. And, oh, my God, I ran around. I was so excited. And a guy came up to me on a horse, looked down and said, "Have you ever been on a horse before?" "No," I said. And he said, "You want to go for a ride?" "Yeah." Somebody picked me up, put me in front of him, and I rode around for, I don't know, probably a minute. Who knows, 5 minutes. The rest of the day I spent on this movie set just being with everybody. I loved it. Got home that night, and my father said, "Guess who gave Little Howie?" That was me, Little Howie. He was Big Howie. Guess who gave Little Howie his first horseback ride? Who? Clark Gable. And, I mean, I didn't know who Clark Gable was. He was just a nice man who, let me be his ride. Well, that was the start of it, and I've loved being on a movie set ever since.
So what would you say what would you say when you were a little boy and hanging around sets and then hanging around as you got a little older? What would you say were the most important things you learned just by being around it?
You had to know everything that was going on.
Mm-hmm.
That there's a term I use. There's a woman I will not allow on any set or in any meeting, and her name is miscommunication.
Yeah.
And what I learned on every set is that everybody has to know what's going on. If the AD and the production manager and the director and the producer don't let the production designer, the cinematographer, the grips, the electricians, the craft service guy, if we all don't know what's going on, like I'll just go back to a sports analogy again. If 8 out of the 9 ball players on the Pirates know what's going on, and the right fielder is off somewhere not thinking, and the ball's hit to right field, the guy hits an inside the park home run because he wasn't paying attention.
Right.
So.
Yeah, it's. I think that's a huge lesson that you have to know everything that's going on all around you at all times. We see students all the time that aren't.
Yeah, you can't assume. Don't assume anything. Ask a question. I always talk about most people live in fear. Have courage to ask the questions that you don't know. It's okay, and it's okay to tell the truth. Hey, I don't know this. Can you help me? I know for most people, if somebody asks for help, oh my God, I can't wait to give it. But if somebody says, I don't need your help, I know everything. All right, well, go do it yourself then, buddy. Good luck.
Yeah, no kidding. So I assume that your father was a major influence on what you learn and what you know. But are there other producers in your time who you admired and or admire currently?
Yeah. Mark Gordon is one.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if, for any of you who don't know Mark and I were co-presidents of the Producers Guild, but Mark has produced Saving Private Ryan, just one pretty good one.
Oh, is that all?
And Grey's Anatomy, Criminal Minds, Ray Donovan, Jobs, Steve Jobs, the movie Jobs. he's just a great producer, and he's a great developer. And he started out from the bottom, like I did.
What makes him great? What's the thing?
He has a great story mind. He is humble, and yet he's able to work with writers and with the whole team in a way that he's not above. Some producers, some directors are kind of above it all, and he's not. He's one of us, and because he's so smart when it comes to story, that's why he's been able to get so many movies and so many television shows going.
Right.
Is because he knows how to tell a story, and he knows how to get the best out of writers.
So would you prefer to, when you get a script, would you prefer to help develop a script from the ground up, or do you prefer it when you've got a really good script to start working with?
Either way, if the story is something that really gets me in my gut, but it's not well written and it's not there yet, then I love developing it. But it sure is fun to get something that you go, wow, I don't have to work too hard. This one's almost there.
Yeah.
And I love what's there.
And
I'd say both are different avenues to get it going.
So you've probably read, thousands of scripts in your life. How often has it happened how often do they come in where they're sort of good to go almost?
Are the dinosaurs still walking around this earth? Very rarely. But it has happened. There had to be work done on it, but man, Robert Towne's draft of Chinatown was pretty goddamn good.
Pretty good. That's my favorite script of all time.
Well, I hit you with the right one then.
Yeah, that's like, and there's one scene in it that is absolutely my favorite scene of all scenes of all time, and that's the one at the club between Giddis and Cross, when Cross is talking about old buildings and whores and politicians. That scene to me is just the greatest scene ever written.
Yeah, he's quite a writer, Bob. I just had lunch with him a couple of weeks ago.
So, all right,
yeah, he's very special.
So, when you're working with writers, what would you say are the things that make writers? So, what suggestions might you have for writers to make them more viable in Hollywood? What is it that the great writers do that the other writers do not quite do as much of?
I would say build characters that people can relate to, that even though you might... Dialogue is less important than what's happening inside the characters. That's what I would say. And even your example of the scene between Noah Cross and Jake Giddis in Chinatown, yes, all that stuff is being said, but underneath it, it's the tete-a-tete between those two.
The subtext.
That's what brings that scene to life. You know what I mean?
I do. It's all subtextual.
Exactly. The subtext is what actors look for, directors look for, and studio executives look for. And a story that just, you go, oh my God. And stuff that we didn't know. What I'm really happy about this year, there's an awful lot of original movies.
Yeah.
Not just sequels and remakes.
Yeah, I agree.
And I'm hoping that studios and people and financiers will go, wow, you know what? Crazy Rich Asians worked. That's not a sequel.
No.
Moonlight worked. That's not a sequel. I'm not talking about this year, but I'm talking about Green Book wasn't a sequel. I can't even think about this year's stuff. But
Moonlight was not a sequel, although it was
Moonlight wasn't a sequel.
Although it was an adaptation, and sometimes adaptations are very valuable.
But that's okay.
Yeah,
adaptations are great. I've adapted several things over my career.
I think adaptations are very valuable as long as they don't become repetitive. That's all.
Right.
So, all right, let's talk for a moment about pitching, because I'm curious. You've obviously pitched a lot in your life, and you've been pitched to a lot. What do you believe are the elements of good pitching that help to sell a story in a room?
Good pitching is short, concise. You have to be passionate about your subject, and you have to have a subject that is absolutely worthy of somebody else's time.
Mm-hmm.
A good pitch can't be more than a half hour. 20 minutes would be perfect. Some people pitch 45 minutes, and believe me, you can't wait to get that person out of the room. Because, why don't you just send me the script already? And it's and by the way, it's really hard to sell a pitch unless it's something that we've read about in the newspapers. I mean, even today, right now, Clint Eastwood has been trying to get Richard Jewell made for 10, 15 years.
Right.
And nobody would do it. And if somebody said, here's the pitch, a security guard at the Atlanta Olympics, people think he's guilty, and the truth is he was a hero, and everybody was down on him and how it was turned around. And you go, oh man, I don't want to do that. Another thing about a bombing, well, look at the reviews, and I can't wait to see it. I haven't seen it yet.
And you're alluding to a really important topic, which is if someone like a Clint Eastwood, who's about as famous and powerful as you get, has trouble getting a story produced, how do the rest of people get stories produced?
Well, but you got to have the rights to something really. Believe me, pitching is the hardest thing to get done.
Mm-hmm.
It's because studios and financiers know that's a really long process. I would say, to the writers out there or the producers out there that think they're going to pitch something, write it down, buddy. Write at least a treatment. Really, write a 10-page treatment that really goes in depth about what you want to do, or write the screenplay. Get it to an agent or a lawyer and have it given to a producer or a studio.
Right.
You have a much better shot than thinking that you're just going to pitch it to somebody.
All right, so let's talk about actual producing for a moment. Do you have, in all the the movies you've worked on, do you have one that's your most favorite?
My most favorite that became, you mean in the process of producing the movie, or just the most favorite of the movies that I produced?
Well, either or both. What did you enjoy producing more than anything else?
I really enjoyed the making of Primal Fear.
Why?
I think that, first of all, William Deal, who wrote the book, actually came to Gary Lucchese and I at the premiere and said, I've done a bunch of books that became movies, and none of them I was happy with. I'm really happy with this. You guys did a great job. That's number one, that the author of the book felt like we did a great job with his book. Number two, we were able to discover one of the great actors in the world, Edward Norton.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody knew who he was. He had never made a movie. You can read in my book how that happened. And he's still a friend of mine. He's still an amazing, amazing filmmaker. Hopefully you'll get to see Motherless Brooklyn. So that was great. Getting to work with Michael Chapman, one of the great cinematographers, and Janine Opelwall, one of the great production designers, and to work with Richard Gere, and to work with my buddy Gary, and great director Greg Hoblet. We went on and did a bunch of movies together. He won 8 Emmys for L.A. Law, Hill Street Blues, and NYPD Blue. And we had a great relationship with the studio. The studio allowed us to make the movie we wanted to make. David Rosenblum was a great editor. and it was fun to make the movie because we all had the same vision. So, and the movie turned out to be a success.
And that certainly sweetens
that's a pretty good job as producer.
Yeah, that sweetens the deal when it's a success. All right, so let's talk about how.
Sorry, 1 second.
Yeah,
Steve.
sure.
I forgot to mention Ann Bitterman.
Oh, Ann Bitterman,
who came in as a writer on it and did an amazing job. Steve Zalian did a draft that kind of got us going. There were a lot of drafts of that script till it finally got to the position where we could make it.
Am I correct that Ann Bitterman created and ran Ray Donovan for a long time?
Yes, that was Ann.
That's one of the best TV shows. That's just a crazy good show.
Yeah, well, Ann's a hell of a writer.
Well, that's really obvious when you watch the show for sure. So, all right, what are the steps that a producer must take once you have a script, you've secured either an option or the rights to it in some way? What are the steps that you begin to take to go toward a production?
First, you've got to find financing. There's lots of different ways. You can go to a studio just with the script. You can go to an independent financer just with the script.
Mm-hmm.
In today's world, it's better to have a package, meaning, do you have a director? It could be a first-time director, but the studios or the financiers know what he's done. He's won an Academy Award for a short, or he made a great short. Or when I say he, I mean he or she, please. I've worked with several female directors, and they're great,
mm-hmm.
so I apologize.
Well, that's the pronoun issue.
Yes. If you have a director, great. If you have an actor or an actress that also wants to do it, fantastic. You have that much more going for you. Once you have that financer and you've got that director and you've got that actor, then your job is, and your job even before that is, the studio or the financer is going to ask you what it's going to cost. Well, you better know what it's going to cost. So I hope you know how to make a budget, or at least hire somebody to do a budget for you, to understand about tax incentives, rebates in states or in international places. So when the studio says, how much is it going to cost, you can give them an estimate. And you can be somebody who they respect as someone who knows how much it's going to cost.
Right.
You've done your research. You've done your work. The more, you go to the market, and already on the shelf is an Impossible Burger, which I started eating. They're great.
They are great.
Huh?
They are great. I love them.
Yeah. Well, up front, because of the packaging, it's been packaged. It tells you how many calories, how much protein, how much cholesterol, yada, yada, yada. Well, and then you can make a decision. Do you want this kind of Impossible Burger from so-and-so or that one? You get to choose. You're the financer, because you're paying at the market for that cheese or that Impossible Burger or that piece of chicken. Do you want the organic chicken or just the chicken from your local supermarket that you know is good? Or you have a butcher. They do the marketing, and you're the financer. You're going to buy. As a producer, you have to make those decisions, and you have to know, what is a studio or a financer going to want to know? So you got to do all the work first.
Mm-hmm. I think you've said something new here today. I think you're the first person ever to compare motion picture production to Impossible Burgers, but that works for me.
Well, and then, still going. You're not done producing yet.
No.
What you're doing, once you get the money, once you get somebody to say yes, they're not going to say yes, green light. You got to get the rest of the cast. You got to put all the crew together.
Yeah.
You got to find the locations. You got to make sure that if you told them it's going to cost $30 million or $3 million, that's what it's going to cost. And if it's going to cost more, you got to go back to that studio or financer and say, hey, I was wrong. It's going to cost 32, or it's going to cost 35, or it's going to cost 100. and then you've got to be able to get them to say yes again. And then when you actually get to make the movie, you're there with the director, and you're working to decide what the look of the movie is going to be, and why you're going to choose this cinematographer as opposed to that one. And then when you start to make them, you're in casting and deciding who's going to play each part. When you make the
how important is casting?
Oh, I would say it's about 80%
exactly
of the performances you're going to get.
Yeah.
I'd say that's pretty important.
Yeah. So I'm sorry I interrupted. Go on. What else do you have to do next?
No, but you're absolutely right. I mean, casting is so to everybody, not just the main stars, but all the way down. Because if there's any scene that doesn't feel truthful, you're in trouble.
You're in trouble. Is correct. Anything that throws the audience out is a problem.
Exactly. It takes them out of the movie. Oh, I don't believe that person. So, at any rate, then you're on the set and you're watching, and because I'm one of those producers, I'm on the set every day. And when whatever you're going to shoot that day, you're going to do, let's say, the scene between Noah Cross and Gittes. Well, I'm sitting in the back if I'm the producer. And I'm saying, okay, what do we need to get out of this scene? Why is this scene important to the movie? Is the subtext there? Do I believe the actors? That's what the producer's doing. He's not worrying about focus. That's for the assistant cameraman.
Right.
He's not worried about performance. That's the director. He's not worried about the lighting. That's the cinematographer. He's not worried about what the set looks like, although all those things are important to him. But he's looking to say, is that gonna work for the movie? And he's being a psychologist and a psychiatrist because the actor had a problem with his wife the night before, or the cinematographer has the flu, or so and so got in a fight with so and so. How do you're putting out fires if they're there, and hopefully you're stopping fires before they ever start. And you're doing that day after day for 24 days if it's a little independent, or 100 days if it's a huge movie. You've become an expert at putting out those fires, haven't you? Oh yeah. Well, you try. Doesn't always happen, but you can't give up. The world of a producer is there's no such thing as no.
Right.
Somebody says, this can't work. I said, oh, really? Well, we're going to find a way to make it work because it has to be. You have to get it to work.
Would you say that quality is critical, that you don't really hear the word no? You're just getting a go a different way?
Yes. I remember I was doing a movie called Keeping the Faith in New York with Edward Norton and Ben Stiller. Edward was directing his first movie, and there was a scene that was going to take place at the museum on Fifth Avenue, the big art museum, 81st and 5th. And everybody said, oh, you can never shoot in there. Nobody will ever let you shoot in there.
Right.
I looked at the production manager and the art director, production designer, and I said, what do you mean no? We're going to find a way to be able to shoot in there. And they said, oh, it never happened. Never happened. Well, with my contacts, I started to go through things, and long story short, I got a meeting with the heads of the museum. The art director put a model together, and we described how we were going to do it, how we were going to get in there on a Sunday night once the museum was closed. They're closed on Mondays, and how we were going to rejig certain areas of the museum, and that we would film from 8 in the morning till 6 o'clock at night, and at 6 o'clock at night, everybody would come in and clean out, get everything out, and by 10 o'clock Tuesday morning, when the museum opened, they wouldn't even know we were there. And I got a yes.
Wow.
And I got a yes because I wasn't going to take no for an answer.
And that quality is what I think makes great producers great. Don't you agree?
Well, I don't know if I'm a great producer. I know I love what I do and I try. But that's the same way with anything. I'm still working on projects I've been working on forever that I'm not taking no. We're going to get these movies made.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a quality that you have to have. I always say producer bangs his head against a brick wall 1,000 times, and the 999th time, all of a sudden, the way he hits it, the brick wall comes down, and wow, you got a movie to make.
How many years did you work in the early part of your career as a production manager, line producer, whatever the title might have been? How many years did you do that before you stepped up to being
as an AD? I started as an AD in 1968.
Yeah.
Then I started doing kind of line producing and production managing stuff in 1974, and then I started really producing my own in 1979. So I guess I did 5 years of line producing, production managing. But understand that even in 1979, when I was creatively producing, I was also, I continue to line produce. I mean, I believe that you can't be a great producer unless you're doing both the creative and the line. You have to understand the whole process.
When you see producers today who don't have those experiences, do you see any kind of a deficit in the way that they work? Do you see a problem for that?
Well, yes, I do. I think that if they believed in something and they give the responsibility over to the director and the production designer and the cinematographer, and they have nothing left to do with it, I don't think that when the movie's a huge success, what's that? You know that famous saying, a success has many...
Success has many friends?
Yeah, it has many friends, and when it's a bomb, I had nothing to do with it. I got it made. But
failure is an orphan.
It was the director's fault,
I think failure is an
I
orphan.
don't buy that. I've made some movies that I'm very proud of that didn't do any business, and I'm still proud of them, and I still feel really good about getting them made. And I've got some movies that I made that just weren't any good, and I feel bad that we spent the money on them.
But nobody ever sets out to make a bad movie, do they?
No.
You're always trying to make a great movie, but that doesn't always work out.
Yes, that's true.
Do you have any notion in your head from all these years as to what separates one from the other, or is it just really ephemeral?
I think there's the really great scripts that man, this is a great script, let's not screw it up. And a lot of those become great, and some don't.
Mm-hmm.
I think I knew, doing the way we were in Chinatown and Marathon Man and Heaven Can Wait and Wayne's World and Primal Fear, I think I knew that they were really good movies.
Yeah.
And then there are some that I went, wow, I hope this works. I'm not really sure. And I think I'm just going to think of Murder on the Orient Express. I don't know why, but my friend Mark Gordon did the new one,
the remake,
a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And it's something that had been done before. They got terrific actors, but the story was kind of similar to what they had done before, but they got a great director, and was it going to work? Was it going to work? We didn't know. I went and saw it, and I went, yeah, it was fun. But was it going to work for an audience? Well, the picture went out and did great,
Right.
And people really enjoyed it. It was time to do it again. And yet, when they did the remake of Ghostbusters or the remake of Charlie's Angels, boom,
Fall
went
flat.
right in the toilet.
Yeah, right in the toilet.
I didn't see the movie. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm not. Maybe it wasn't any good. But in today's world, because everything is so quick, because of social media, everybody knows immediately what works and what doesn't. Boy, did they stay away from the theater, or boy, did they go to the theater.
Right.
I remember my dad's movie, Ghost, before social media. But the people who saw it on Friday night when it opened must have called everybody they knew and said, you've got to go see this movie. Because one of the records that's still standing is the difference in people who came on a Friday night to Saturday night was something like a 75% jump.
Wow.
Because everybody that saw it on Friday night loved it and called their friends, and by Saturday night, Ghost was a huge smash.
So social media is a form of word of mouth, but is there any substitute for word of mouth? In other words, I'll tell you why I asked that question. Years ago, I was in a class that Peter Guber, the famous producer, taught.
Sure.
And in that class, he said that the studios this is 10 years ago, he said that the studios are wasting their money on advertising in newspapers, magazines, and on radio. And he said what you really need to do is to figure out how to drive social media and word of mouth. Do you think that that's true today?
Yes. And by social media, because of Rotten Tomatoes and those other sites, the critics do have things to say. But word of mouth, social media is definitely it. And then, especially this time of year, as the awards are being nominated, hopefully some people are looking, going, wow, if 5 different critical awards people are saying that's something, maybe I should go see that one.
Mm-hmm. I think there's you can see it. You can see it unfold when 2 people tell 4 people and 4 people tell 8. It just grows fast. Yeah. And you can spend tens of millions of dollars on advertising that nobody cares about, then you have a problem. That is for sure. I'm going to ask you a question that I ask lots of guests, and I think it's a really challenging question, but I love the answers I get, and that is, what for you makes a good story good? How do you know it's a good story?
I would say I get the chills.
Ooh.
I laugh. It gets me in my gut. I care about it. I think it's one of the great lines that a fabulous producer named David Brown said a long time ago.
Yes. They're
called moving pictures.
Yes.
So if it moves me, that's a good story.
So it's a personal connection to the story. It's not an academic connection. It's in your guts. And
yeah, somebody could make I go to see a lot of movies that I go, wow, that was a good movie. Didn't get me in the gut, but it was a good movie.
Yeah.
But it wasn't something I wanted to, get involved with.
You recognize the craft is very good. The performances may be great, but there's something that just didn't hit you. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
What we teach here, and I think you'll concur that the movie business is the passion business. It's not really the intellectual business. Though you got to be smart and use your brains all along to make these things. But
yes.
but you're selling passion. Is that correct?
Yes.
I think that's
you're selling a moving picture. It moves you.
Yeah.
Moves you as a horror movie, as a drama, as a comedy, as a historical piece, as a political piece. It moves you.
So for those who don't know who David Brown was, he was partnered for a long time with Daryl Zanuck.
David Zanuck.
I'm sorry, David Zanuck, correct. Daryl was his father. And they made Jaws and The Sting and a whole bunch of really amazing movies.
Oh, The Verdict. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, some really amazing movies. So you've clearly worked with lots of famous people. You've known lots of stars. What is it that you think? Can you put your finger on what makes a star a star?
No.
You have no idea.
I think number one, their personality, because I think their personality comes through. I never got to work with Humphrey Bogart, but I sure would have loved to.
Oh boy, no
because,
kidding.
He had that something special. I never got to work with Audrey Hepburn, but boy, did she have something special. I have gotten to work with Barbra Streisand and Paul Newman and Robert Redford and Goldie Hawn and just on and on. Edward Norton. They're very smart. I think they're curious. I think curiosity never stops with them. And I think that goes for great directors, too, like Sidney Pollack and Roman Polanski and Alan Pakula and Warren Beatty. I think curiosity, they never stop pulling everything they can from you. Some of them don't want to give anything back, but But no, I think curiosity. I think there are okay talent, there's real talent, and then there's the geniuses. And I've been fortunate enough to work with some of those geniuses.
No, really? No kidding.
Well, yeah. I mean, I believe that Sidney Pollack was a genius director.
No question.
He knew how to get a script to where it needed to be, and he knew how to work with the actors. And he loved moving the camera. I think Polanski was and is a great director, genius director. We don't have to talk about all the other stuff, just as a director.
Yeah, sure.
I think Barbara is one of the super talents of any lifetime.
No question.
I think Paul Newman the same way. I mean, look what Paul Newman did. Aside from the great movies and the great actors, look what he did. Look what he did for the world.
Oh, the charity?
I mean,
unbelievable.
Yeah, I don't know if all your people know it, but the Paul Newman, the popcorns and the salad dressings and everything else, that doesn't go to his heirs. That goes to charity.
100% of profits.
All of that goes to the Paul Newman Foundation.
Yeah.
I mean, what a human being this guy was.
Yeah.
Redford, same thing. So much about the environment.
And Sundance, just Sundance alone.
And Sundance. So these people are a step above.
Yeah, no question. That's, I guess it's long been called the it factor, and nobody can really define it. I just wondered.
Yeah, I don't know what answers you got from other people. I don't know how to define it, but I know it when I see it.
Most people can't, but I like to ask the question because I think it's a really curious question. How does someone become a star? Well, I don't think you can really set out to be a star. Or do you know people that have done that, have set out to be a star and then became a star? Jack. That's a pretty good example.
Yeah, I think Jack is one that wanted, hey, man, I'm going to be a movie star. I think I don't know that he really believed it, but he said it, and he actually became it.
He's certainly one of the most unique characters in the whole history of Hollywood, that's for sure.
He is. Yeah.
He's definitely one off. There's nothing else like him. So a couple more questions. I just wonder, you obviously have worked over time where you have many projects in the pipeline at the same time. Or when you're working on a big production and you have a lot of items to deal with, I'm wondering, do you have a trick or a technique that you use to keep everything straight?
Honestly, I think I'm weak at that, Steve.
Okay.
I'm weak. I think once I've got a movie going, I really have to put everything else on the back burner because I feel a responsibility to the financiers, whether it be a studio or an independent financer, that they've put their trust in me to go ahead and make this movie. And if I'm off thinking about others, I'm not doing my job.
Mm-hmm. Good. So it's about focus then. Once you've focused. All right, so now once you're in production, are you pretty good at just keeping track of all the various moving parts?
Oh, yeah. Well, that comes from learning as an assistant director. I can still stand on a set, or unfortunately, it's bad news, when I'm in a restaurant, I can hear all the conversations at all the different tables, and I can watch everybody around and know what's going on.
Really?
Because that's the job of the assistant director.
Yeah. And you just do that naturally now just because you've been doing it so long?
Yes.
That's amazing. That certainly must have helped you when you produced the Oscars, yeah?
Yes. Yeah.
What was that experience like?
That was as exciting and fun as anything I've ever done.
Yeah.
As president of the Oscars.
Yeah.
That was a thrill beyond.
I would imagine, because you're dealing with the biggest show in the world.
Well, you're dealing with the biggest show, and you're dealing with the Academy itself, the governors, the Board of Governors are three. From each branch, there are three governors: sound, art direction, costume design, actors, writers, directors, producers, executives, shorts, animation,
documentaries. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So the best of the best are these governors. They've been elected by their own branches. So to sit in a room with them and to preside over that, and to be able to, have an agenda and things that I wanted to get done at the Academy, and to be able to get most of them accomplished. Boy, that was just a great, great feeling.
So that came, I assume, with a lot of pressure, and all of your shoots are pressure packed. What do you do to deal with pressure?
I do. Do you want me to tell the Redford story? Is
Sure,
that why?
absolutely.
So, in working with Redford on the first movie that I worked with him, and it was only his second movie. He wasn't a major star yet. We became friends, and one day he said to me, "Hey, I got to drive up to Utah. I built this A-frame house. I got to drive up. You want to drive with me, and we'll share the road. We'll share driving starting Friday night when we wrap, and we'll come back, be ready for work Monday morning."
Just
said,
you,
"Sure."
just you and Robert Redford in a car together for 2 days.
Yeah, 1965.
Okay.
And so he drove the first lap from L.A. to Vegas, and then I was driving, and we're about an hour and a half out of Vegas. Absolutely, not super highways, but a highway. Pitch black, no full moon, and no cities around. And all of a sudden, Redford said, pull off this road, get on the side road." And I said, "Why, Bob?" He said, "Just pull off." I'd only known the guy 8 weeks. What the hell? Pull off the road. So, all right, I pulled off and got on a side road. And I'm driving for a couple of minutes, and he says, "Turn right here." I said, "Bob, that's a dirt road." He said, "Turn right here." Holy shit. I'm scared out of my mind. I make a turn onto this dirt road, and he said, "Stop the car." I said, "What?" And he pushed the gear shift into park. He grabbed the keys, and he said, "Get out." I mean, we're in the middle of nowhere. I mean nowhere. It's pitch dark. If you know cartoons, my heart was coming out of my chest.
Yeah.
So scared. I was looking for a gun, a knife. I don't know what the hell the guy's going to do. And I got out on one side of the hood, and he was on the other side. He looked at me with a really, really mean face. And I'm looking at, do I run? I couldn't run. My legs were like lead. And then all of a sudden, he proceeded to scream, "Oh!" really loud for like a minute. I'm looking at him like, who is this guy? He's crazy. He's out of his mind. He smiled when it was over. He threw me the keys, and he said, "Try it." He said, "It's good for you." Well, I went, eh. That's about all I could get out. We got back in the car. I was still shaking. And as we're driving on the main road again, he explained about Arthur Janoff and the primal scream,
Yeah.
and how it really, allows you to relieve the stress. So as president of the Academy, I was going to go out in front of 1.3 billion people.
Oh, is that all?
And have to speak. So just before they were going to, introduce me, I went outside the Dolby Theater, and I proceeded to do Redford's Primal Scream. Came back in, said to myself, magic time, and went out on the stage. And, hey, I did a pretty good job, and I stood up straight. I got to look down into the audience, and so many of the people in the audience were people I had worked with over the years. It really gave me confidence to keep going.
What a great story. I've had the great privilege here today to speak for an hour with the author of Magic Time, his autobiography, Koch. Hawk, can you leave us with a good piece of advice or a tip for those who are trying to make it in the business? I know you've given us lots of great advice already, but do you have anything specific to lend the listeners?
Well, if you want to be an actor, act. If you want to be a director, direct. If you want to be a writer, write. If you want to be a cinematographer, shoot. If you want to be a producer, produce. You don't have to do it in Hollywood. If you want to be famous, good luck.
Yeah.
Maybe you will be the cream of the crop, but direct a little movie with the iPhone. You can do anything you want. If it's good, it's a short, it's a 1-minute thing. Do it. Keep doing it. If you love it, don't worry about being famous. Keep doing what you love in your life. That would be my tip.
I think that is Such solid sound advice. If you don't love what you're doing, why are you doing it? And if you
don't.
And if you do
Gotta
love
have
it,
fun,
do it.
guys,
Yeah.
girls.
Yeah.
Have fun. If you're not having fun in your life, find something else to do.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of fun, this has been an enormous amount of fun. I thank you so much for coming on the show today, Hawk. I'm very grateful.
Well, it's great to talk to you. I loved your questions, Steve, and good luck. And I hope to see you out here someday soon.
And so we've come to the end of today's Story Beat. If you like this podcast, please take a moment to give us a comment, rating, or review on whatever app or platform you're listening to. Your support helps us bring more great episodes to you. This podcast would not have been possible without the generous support of the Center for Media Innovation on the campus of Point Park University. Until next time, I'm Steve Cuden, and may all your stories be unforgettable.